Redditors no longer on speaking terms with their former best friend for life due to one incident. What happened? I think she had a psychotic breakdown. She had a blood disease that meant terrible allergies, like ambient mold outside in the autumn could send her into anaphylactic shock. She also had controlling, religiously conservative, emotionally abusive parents, a manipulative ex-boyfriend, the if you leave me I will kill myself type of emotional abuse, plus a history of struggling against anorexia, with a lot of hang-ups about food. So very shortly after coming to college, she really let loose. Went crazy with decorating her room and claiming her space, her own body. Met a nice boy, fell in love, and wound up pregnant. Between her crappy parents and her life-threatening health condition, she decided to terminate her pregnancy. I and other friends circled around her supportively. I loaned her $500. I and other friends walked with her to therapy, drive her to doctor appointments, took away knives when she started to self-harm, and wrestled her to the floor when she threatened to jump off a nearby bridge known for being lethal. One by one, she turned on us, slammed doors in our faces, made accusations about what we plotted against her. She snuck into one girl's room and literally cut faces out of the photos the girl had posted on her wall. This culminated in her trying to get me kicked out of school by telling the dean of students I had threatened, harassed, and purposefully ostracized her. The dean believed her, despite the lack of evidence. Honestly, I think my friend believed herself too. I was forced to write an apology letter for behaviors I didn't do, or get expelled. I also faced the threat of expulsion if I ever talked to my friend again, or even talked about her publicly. So yeah, our last contact was a letter the dean made me write, which the dean then edited and sent. I don't really blame that girl. She needed serious medical and psychological help. The dean of students failed us both with that whole debacle. I hope she's alright now. That was 13 years ago. I'd posted this story before. Twins. During summer after high school grad, we had made plans for my birthday, and most everyone else had cancelled due to unforeseen consequences or had told me they were maybe ahead of time. One twin texted me the day of, hours before our plans, had a bull's excuse if it were as important as they had made it seem. They'd had planned around it, pushed the blame off of their ineptitude, and never once apologized with a simple sorry, or a rain check to hang out later. The other one didn't even say anything. I had to cancel most of the day's activities. It was during a time that I was very depressed as the rest of my friends group had fractured, and made me realize they were unreliable. If they had said, "Hey, we know that this was important to you. We let you down and that was our bad. We're sorry. When are you free to hang out with us?" all would have been forgiven. Didn't really respond, and they never made the effort either. Honestly, if I could go back in time, I'd tell my younger self to cut off anyone who bails on your birthday. It has never been anything but a bad sign of times to come, in my experience. He wasn't depressed. He was selfish. I learned this when I had 3 close family members' friends die in the space of 6 weeks, as well as a spiraling social life and financial issues while he was thriving after I helped him through his dark time. It was entirely him just being a T and using depression as a victimhood defense. I had a horrific time and was left feeling so alone. When he knew I was getting back on my feet and getting through it, he asked if I was up for a party that I would host, and it could not have been more clear how blind I had been the entire friendship. It wasn't one incident, but the last straw for her was not being the center of attention at my wedding. She was used to being the prettier one and getting all the male attention. She craved that. I didn't have those same issues, and I don't like being the center of attention. I don't remember her encouraging or discouraging her behavior, though I do think I led by example pretty well. She would sit on guys' laps and flirt with them, including my boyfriends. My boyfriend was very uncomfortable and would promptly make an excuse to get up. He said something to me about it, and I just calmed him down and dismissed her behavior. Looking back at it, I feel I should have said something to her. She was in a serious relationship at the time and shouldn't have been acting like that. I completely trusted my boyfriend at the time. He's a trustworthy guy. That's why I married him. She asked to be my bridesmaid, so I caved and left her. I wasn't going to have one. She didn't do any of the normal bridesmaid stuff. My mom planned the wedding shower because she didn't want to. She never took me out to celebrate my engagement. I bought her bridesmaid gifts. She didn't even give me a wedding present. Which is odd, because we used to exchange gifts often and go out often. She wasn't poor and she wasn't too busy. The color I choose for the wedding was burnt orange. I had large orange lilies. It was nice. She didn't want to wear orange, and like I said, I didn't care about the wedding party thing anyway, so I told her she could wear whatever she wanted. Cut to the wedding day. She showed up late and wearing a white dress. I didn't care. I was busy doing other things. I don't get upset easily, and things don't bother me, so I just carried on. She kept trying to get everyone's attention, but all the attention was on me. It was my wedding. She was very jealous. Looking back at it, I can see she had been jealous for a while. At some point I had become the one that was more interesting to be around and people seemed to like me more. She was no longer getting the attention she desired and we haven't seen each other since my wedding. She never invited me to her wedding even though when she begged to be my bridesmaid she told me that I would be hers. Sounds like a narcissist to me. You're better off without them. The incident that broke the camel's back was when she asked me if I was tired of being a homewrecker. The guy I was dating was divorced and his ex-wife somehow figured out my email and messaged me calling me a homewrecker right before I went to work. I went to my friend crying because I was devastated that someone would think of me like that, and to her echo it was too much. The friendship was already rocky but it was the last straw. I realized she only liked it when she was doing better than me. I was never the one to chase guys and was definitely getting married. She was. She can't stand I'm happily married and she's not. But I noticed one day that it's been the same pattern since we were 11 and at almost 36 I'm too old for a frenemy. We had a disagreement over how a TV show handled racism. Stupidest argument we ever had. Stupid because I was in butthole and I hate how I handled the situation. There are few things in life that I'd like to go back in time to change, but that's one of them. How I behaved during that stupid argument. In middle school, everyone used to fight for a ping pong table during the recess. I got into one of the tables. My best friend for life asked me to get him in too and I asked both teams if they would let him join. They said no as it was already too many people for a single table. So due to that one incident, we haven't spoken to each other in 16 years. She started dating an abusive dirtbag. Told me I was a terrible friend for not supporting her. Cut me out real quick. Sorry, but I'm not going to be okay with a close friend dating someone who treats them like literal garbage. Sorry. I was 13. She started ignoring me and was treating her new friends better than she treated me. Things snowballed from there and we left on a huge fight over text message. She said I hope you get raped by a Mexican. I said OMG you're being so annoying, I wanna strangle you. I didn't mean it. But guess who had a cop show up at their house? Yep, me. It was stupid. The whole reason she ignored me was because she thought I was ignoring her and blah blah blah. Middle school is weird, but she was my best friend. I wish I could take it all back. We were best friends for 2 years and would basically have a continuous conversation going over text, FaceTime, whatever, even though he lived pretty far away. We were comfortable with each other to the point where we would tell each other about the really good crap one of us just took. Met him once in person when he came to my area. He ghosted me a couple of months later. It's been a year and a half and I still don't know why. Maybe the in-person connection wasn't what they expected. Had something similar happen to me once. Our other best friend is gay and has an amazing long-term boyfriend. She didn't agree with his lifestyle as she saw it. It came down to choosing between the two of them. I don't get to see my friend often anymore due to life, but I'm very happy for him and he was a bridesmaid at my wedding. If somebody ever makes you choose between two people, go with the one who doesn't make you choose. 97.5% confidence. I realized that I was a backup friend that she just used whenever her other friends were too busy and that she didn't really value me as a friend. So I decided to stop caring altogether. Played Mortal Kombat. I performed a fatality on my friend and he paused and restarted match before it ended. I was like, haha bro, salty boy. Anyway, the next game he won, he tried to perform the fatality and I paused the game and restarted. He got so mad that he told me to never come to his house again and kicked me out. so I didn't. We were the joined at the hip girls in junior high, always together. Wheedled the school admins to drop at us so we could have the same class schedule. Paid some kid $20 to trade lockers with one of us so we could have lockers next to each other. Always at each other's houses after school. Crushed on the same boys. Hated the same girls. Listened to the same music. And then one night on a sleepover she slid her hand under the waistband of my pajamas and started trying to finger me. I never had a problem with someone being gay, and if she told me before that she wanted to experiment along those lines I might have even went along with it. I don't even think she was gay per se. I think it was one of those things where you try something because you're young and unsure of stuff. But it was a total surprise. I wasn't even ready for sex with boys. I'd only kissed a few times. So I freaked out and made a big deal of it, and then I freaked up worse than she had. I told other kids at school. Her life was completely fricked. I'm sure you can imagine. I don't think she ever lived it down, even through high school. That was the end of our friendship, obviously. A male my best friend for life was a girl and we worked together at the same grocery store. We even talked about that no matter what happens we're going to be the best of friends for our entire lives. There was another girl at the grocery store I really liked and eventually gathered the courage to ask out and she said yes. I was so happy. A few days later she told me she wouldn't be going out with me, wouldn't give me a second shot and wanted nothing to do with me and wouldn't tell me why. I found out later my alleged best friend for life went behind my back and told the girl I liked the only thing I wanted from her was sex and once I slept with her I would want nothing more to do with her. Hit me like a freaking hammer, man. I couldn't believe she would do that. I liked her for a while but she was seeing someone else so I guess she was jealous or something of the attention I wasn't giving her anymore. IDK I didn't give her a chance to explain. Ran into her a few years later at the grocery store and she tried apologizing and everything but I was like how the frick am I ever supposed to trust you again after what you did? Met when we were 11. Friends for years. At 21 we moved in together. He had a long-term GF for like 3 years that he proposed to and said no. He was devastated. A few months later met this girl, an ex of a mutual friend. Him, her, me, and my GF at the time went on a double date. It was a disaster. They had almost no communication, not much in common. A fight broke out over how they had very different opinions on major issues like same-sex relationships, guns, and abortion. I defended my friend's views, which we shared. Doesn't matter which side of it anyone is on for this. Anyway, when she left for the night, I figured I'd never hear about her again. 13 days later he proposed and she said yes. However, somehow she made up with him but hated me. Fair enough. He comes to me 6 months before the lease is over, saying we won't renew. Fine. Comes to me a couple weeks later and says sorry, plans changed. God wants them married much sooner than planned, and one of two things has to happen. I have to leave 4ish months early, which would be covered, in theory, or he would leave 4 months early, sticking me with bills. But he was going to move back in when I left. We were renting his parents' extra house. Frick you, Chris. God didn't say crap. You got lonely and or frisky and your girl didn't like me and you had no spine. I really have no idea. But it's been 13 years and it still bugs me to this day. We were 18 and had been best friends since we were 12. All of a sudden she stopped responding to my calls, texts, and messages on AIM. The only thing I can think of that caused the silent treatment is that her stupid boyfriend, who was also my friend since middle school, started sending me sexually explicit messages on AIM. He was telling me about his penis so I told him off and he must have told her I was being a mean bee or something because I never heard from her again. A few years later, after they had broken up, the stupid boyfriend and I were hanging out and he said she used to cry to him about not talking to me anymore. He'd tell her to call, but she didn't. And then she would tell him that if he ever hung out with me, she'd kill us both. So probably some mental health issues at work. It was her birthday yesterday. If you're out there, Jay, I still kinda miss you and would like to catch up sometime. Met this girl at the stables about 4 years ago via a mutual friend. She was new and I rode there about 3 years and she was leasing a horse while I was just there for lessons. I would hang out when she rode her horse and I was allowed to help and have a little trot around on her horse. She started becoming more popular and I was always there in the background. I would always help her no matter what. She would never be thankful for me, the person who was always willing to help, while she would always be thankful for a friend she would complain about to me and we see 3 times a year. We had a few fights that were my fault. I quit at the stables and we lost contact about a year ago. They asked me in May if I could help her study for her chem final and I did for some reason. She never thanked me and I saw her once at the stables when I went back to see my old carer horse. She sent me a message about 6 months ago if I could come round to her house to clip her pet's nails. Internally I flipped and nicely replied no. Haven't spoken to her since and will never will. She used me all these years and I wish I would have taken action sooner. I know this isn't the best story, but I really thought we would be friends for life and buy a horse together once we finished university. Life is weird sometimes. I wish I knew. My brother was my best friend for years. In my wedding, offer each other advice, joked, played and worked together really well. Then he just stopped talking to me. I asked him, was it something I said? Was it my wife? No real answer. I miss him. I miss friendship. I miss brotherhood. I miss my brother. My childhood friend from the age of 2 decided to steal a bunch of stuff from an acquaintance's home and blame it on my younger brother. He brought all the stuff to my house saying it was his. He was between apartments and needed a place to keep some stuff. When my brother was confronted about stealing various video games and electronics from the acquaintance, I had to go return the stuff and explain to the person that my friend had dropped it all off at my house and I had no idea that it wasn't his. This was a friendship of 20 years or so at that point, but I was disgusted with him so I wrote him off forever. He tried to get in touch with me a few years back when he had a kid, but I ignored him. 1. High school. She was pregnant and doing drugs. I told her I'd support her whatever her decision, but she needed to consider adoption. We were 15 and her dad had just died, leading to all kinds of destructive behavior. She decided to keep it but miscarried at 5 months and stopped talking to me because she said I never wanted her to have the baby anyway. She was grief stricken and I was kind of okay that she took it out on me. She needed an outlet somewhere. She chose me because having me around, I was the good kid that parents asked to befriend their kids, kept leading her mom to say that she should just be more like me instead of helping her deal with her mental health issues. 2. Late 20s. She became an anti-vaxxer. Called him out on lying to me. He stopped talking to me. We were best friends for a decade. It's been 2 years since we last spoke. I want to reach back out to him, but part of me is afraid he will say no, and I dread that finality. I'm a female. Best friend was a guy and we'd been friends since 6th grade, now 23. He got a girlfriend that he really liked. I was super excited for him and even helped him pick out an artist to make a cartoon portrait of them together for a comic book as a gift to her. All of a sudden I've been ghosted. Saw through a mutual friend that they were engaged and I wondered why I hadn't seen any of it on social media. Turns out I've been unfriended on Facebook and blocked on everything else. It's been over a year now since I've had any contact with him and he's getting married in a couple of months. He punched the crap out of my landlord with a broken leg and cancer in his wheelchair, getting me kicked out of my house by the cops at 2 AM with my small dog in the rain. Best friend of 12 years got a boyfriend and he doesn't like me. Been pretty much ghosted since. 12 years probably won't mean much later, but being 24, crap still stings. That's a long time to ditch someone over for love. I don't understand how someone could choose that over such a long friendship. They'll regret it one day when they've broken up with their BF and don't have you to comfort them. In the meantime, it sounds like you're better off anyway. I asked her several times if she wanted to bring her family to my out-of-state wedding for a weekend. She said no. I set her up for the trip. Free food, free room. I was going to drive her wherever. She only had to pay for her dress $90 and plane ticket. 2 weeks before the wedding she wants to either come late and miss rehearsal or miss the reception. I was annoyed, but I tell her to come late. It's agreed on. Then the next minute she's asking to bring her baby instead. I ask her if she can solve the dozen or so problems that would suddenly give me. Her free room is with us at my grandma-in-law's. The room is directly next to 80-year-old grandma who owns and operates a ranch in SD. She put her and great-grandkids in the basement so she wouldn't be kept awake. Who watches the baby during the ceremony? Baby can't be outside. It's taking place on a hill and few minutes walk from the nearest building. She said she was going to carry the baby down the aisle, and is it really a big deal if she fusses? Yes. I would have been totally cool if her boyfriend had come to help, or if she had given me a notice it was her and the baby a few months before when I was making arrangements for everyone. So I told her no, it wouldn't work out. She ghosted on me for a week. By the time she finally got back to me, I replaced her and uninvited her. She was my best friend for 15 years, but it wasn't the first time that she acted like an entitled brat. I went to all her births. I went to through her baby showers. I got her kids gifts every Christmas. I went to their birthday parties. I just wanted one freaking weekend. And I knew I couldn't let her come after ghosting on me because she would have pouted the entire time. I had a best friend in elementary, junior high, and we had been super close since about kindergarten. I think she was the first friend I ever made in school. I honestly don't know what the actual frick I did to get on her bad side, but she convinced almost our whole friend group to turn on me. Genuinely no idea what went wrong. Like I'm over here trying to live a drama-free life and I don't need that. They started calling me horrible names, specifically B from heck, and basically harassing me. The one girl who didn't harass me is now my best friend LMAO. She conveniently moved away, and while we're friends on Facebook now, we haven't spoken in almost a decade. She burned me with a straightening iron, which she insisted I had to use, because curly hair must be straight and straight hair must be curled. I may be female, but I don't really get girl rules on account of being mildly autistic. We had bonded because her son was also autistic, as were two of my sons. She started screaming at me that I couldn't be upset about being burned because I had tattoos. Apparently they meant I could take the pain, then tap the cool part of the iron against her wrist repeatedly, screaming see at me. I suggested she tap the element, the part of the iron she had burned me with, against her skin, and she told me I was a frickin' retarded and to get the frick out of her house. I was sobbing by this point and she was just smirking. You're so fricking stupid. You're frickin' retarded. Just like your kids. Get the frick out of my house. I don't even want to go out with you tonight. Fricking idiot retarded. So I left. And the next day she called to ask if I was over myself yet. I informed her that our relationship was over and she was not to contact me in any way ever again. It was actually a lesson to me. She was dumbfounded. She kept saying she knew she had said some mean crap, but she was mad. There are people in the world who think that just because they're upset, it means they can just let loose. Turns out he was a pathological liar who wouldn't even admit it to himself. He lied about having cancer. Some odd story that he killed his dad after his dad killed his mum at age 4 or something ridiculous. The fact that he was a natural ginger and he said he dyed it orange, but normally his black hair, he lied a lot more, and I never really cared about his life, but it was the fact that he didn't want to admit it and said I was doing all of what I did out of hate to him. Honestly, all of these lies built each other up, and one day I had enough of it and decided to call him out on every single lie that he made sure to repeat, and that I could provide evidence for, and tell everyone by going through his dad and his brother's Facebook and putting it on Snapchat. We were in a group of friends at the time, and because of him we split up. He referred to everyone who believed me as someone from my name here, S side, as if it was a war or something. There was this one kid who believed him through and through. Talk about coincidence, he was also ginger. Had some name like Angus or something, can't really remember. He was such a manipulative C2. There is so much stuff he did that really makes me wonder why I ended up being friends with this guy. Two friends, actually. First one staged a suicide attempt via Facebook 3 months after my mom had gotten out of the mental ward after a 2-month stay for a major depressive episode. Friend later confessed, after being confronted, that she did it deliberately because she was salty at all the attention I got from our mutual friends over my mom's hospitalization. I was 19. We'd been friends since first grade and lived around the block from each other. 3 years later, another friend since elementary school had developed into a pretty severe alcoholic and had completely changed as a person, alienating most of his friends and certainly his roommates, after assaulting one of them while drunk and repeatedly blowing all of his rent and utility money on booze. Friendship ending moment for me was at a party where he locked me in his room, demanded to know why everyone seemed so mad at him, and when I broached the subject of his drinking completely lost his crap at me and told me that I deserved every time my mom ever abused because I was a terrible person, and it's a shame she never killed me. My then boyfriend heard him yelling and me crying through the door, ended up having to break the lock, and we had to call the cops on my friend because he was totally out of control. He and I never spoke again. Fun fact, second one was gay. First one was obsessed with him for years despite knowing this. I heard from mutual friends that they reconnected after the party event, and he strung her along for a few months for fun. No idea where either of them are now, but they certainly deserve each other's company. She chose my ex-husband over me in the divorce. Told me I was a bad mother because she believed the bulls that my then husband was telling her. He said I left him so I could party and I was an alcoholic and drug addict. I am neither. I left him because he wanted to bring other people into our marriage and I didn't want to live that life. She and I were friends for 25 years. Frick her. We were a group of 6 best friends all throughout middle school and high school. We hung out every single day and chatted a bunch after school on a MySpace Facebook. As soon as we graduated, one group member completely ghosted us. The 5 of us don't even know what happened. We were all super good friends until one day we weren't. Blocked on all things social media, FB, Instagram, Twitter, etc. My parents still see her parents from time to time, and last thing I've heard from my mom is that she's working at some precinct as a forensic scientist. It's been 7 years since we graduated, and we still have no clue why she ghosted all of us. I'm sure this will get buried. I went into business with him and I was to get half the business. We started making a lot of money. Long story short, he started doing unethical things with clients' money and committing massive tax fraud. I had a come to Jesus and he told me he was screwing me out of my half of the company. Of course, with his shenanigans, I couldn't be involved anyway. Still, it sucked. Took me a while to get my life back on track after that. Don't ever want to even see that scumbag again. And that's why you report people for things like tax fraud. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.